And rule number 3, always keep firearms unloaded until they're in use.
Throwing targets are lightweight, weatherproof, take thousands of rounds of shooting, and make shooting fun. Pick up a set for your next range trip.
This is the one that sometimes people get sideways about, and they feel like that's inappropriate because they don't understand in use. A gun that is being carried on my person for defense, is that gun in use? I'm not shooting it, but it's being used to defend me. It is in use and therefore should be loaded. Firearm staged to defend my home. It's in use, therefore it should be loaded. Now, of course, should be kept from unauthorized access, those kinds of things, but should be loaded. A firearm that is sitting on a table, just sitting on a table, it's not being used, should be unloaded, showed clear. And we'll do that if we have any of that today. We shouldn't have a whole lot of that today or tomorrow. I always prefer to lock the slide to the rear and set it with the ejection port open so that I can see that it's unloaded before I ever pick it up. Okay? But if you think about this, when I go to pick up a firearm, I'm going to do these in order. I'm going to, before I pick it up, I'm going to orient it such that I can keep it pointed in the direction of least consequence. I'm going to ensure that my finger is high and in register when I pick it up, that it's not on there. And the first thing I'm going to do when I pick it up, if I cannot see it visually beforehand, is check that it's unloaded and clear it. See how that path works great for me every time. So when I pick up a firearm, I do this path, 1, 2, 3. And if I practice those all the time, we're in business.
I just want to clarify something.
Sure.
So ready is this, right?
We'll talk about different ready positions.
Okay.
So I would call that a muzzle averted position. So a position where this is more of a guard. People will call this is a very particular thing called position Sewell. Some people will put over the top of it where they're here, or if they are muzzle averted and back and the muzzle's down like this, I would call this a guard position. So this is, I don't have anybody that I know I need to shoot right now, but I am maybe watching a hallway, or I am looking for something, I'm searching and assessing. This is a guard position, as opposed to if I have somebody say Neil is, we'll get that in a second. Hey Neil, stand right there, real quick. So if Neil had a knife and I thought I was gonna have to shoot him pretty quick and I was ready to shoot him, I wouldn't wanna be down here. I'd wanna have my gun out where it was in my peripheral where I could see him. So now I'm ready to shoot him. I would call this a low ready position.
But okay. So at the point you get your sight alignment, is that when your finger goes on?
When I've made a conscious decision to fire. So when I've made a decision, I'm gonna press the trigger on this gun and fire the gun, then I go. So again, if Neil is standing there and I am at a ready position and for whatever reason I decide I'm gonna shoot that guy, right? For whatever reason, now the gun comes up and my finger comes on the trigger as it does. So that I begin my press. How much time do I have my finger on the trigger? Depends on how much care I need to take in my trigger press. And we'll work on it.
I'm just thinking like in a situation where you got a lot of adrenaline going, moving your finger onto the trigger when you want to fire could I mean, unless you train a lot, you're going to pull that shot maybe or whatever. So
well, we're going to work on that because we have a mantra. We'll get there in just a minute. It's a great concern. We'll get there as we work through it, okay? So, any questions on the rules of safe firearms handling? Now, I didn't give you time to ask this. Any questions whatsoever? What questions do you have? We shouldn't have a big problem with these. Now, I'll tell you, we have 2 ways that your shooting day can be over, all right? So we'll give you plenty of leeway on specifically the trigger finger stuff. And quite frankly, I will tell you, when we start working on holstering stuff, people point guns at themselves all the time when they're holstering a gun. I think it's a terrible idea, and we're going to show you a very safe and predictable way to holster that will keep you from pointing a gun at yourself, and I'm going to strongly encourage you to use that methodology all weekend. But if you refuse, I will let you point a gun at yourself. It's your own bullet hole. However, if you point a gun at anybody else, then that's an unacceptable level of risk. Now you've endangered someone else, and that means you've outrun your headlights, means you've hit your cognitive limits, which could happen out here. Very humid today, gonna be pretty warm today, so people can get over their limits pretty fast. If you point a gun at any other person, then your day is over, all right? Doesn't mean that your baby's ugly, doesn't mean your mom is fat, it means that you're done shooting for the day, all right? Point a gun at any other person. The other thing, for the safety of the class, if you handle a firearm behind the line without permission, your day is over as well. The way that we see that happen from time to time is we clear the line, everybody goes back, we say, hey, go load some magazines and meet me back here. And somebody goes, oh, they get back there loading magazines. I need to load the magazine that's in my gun. They draw their gun to get the magazine out of it. Okay, now, if you need to do that, 2 things. Number 1, if you ever need to draw the gun in an administrative manner, just ask me or Neil. We'll let you do it. We'll just take you to a safe place to do it. We'll say, yeah, step up to the line. By all means, safely draw your firearm, do the thing you need to do, put the gun back in the holster, and go do your thing.
We've never said no.
I've literally never said no to it. And I won't. I want you to feel, just get permission to do that. The second way that we see that happen from time to time is students have a backup gun in their bag, which is fine. And all of a sudden that backup gun comes out at lunchtime or something. True story. One of our other employees, Mike, and I were driving down the road the other day in Phoenix, Arizona, driving the Aspamobile. So, I've got the logo on my truck. Sitting at a stoplight, dude rolls up to me, next to me at the stoplight. Hey! Roll the window down. Hey, man, how are you? Hey, John, oh, man, it's great to see you, blah, blah, blah. I cover my ass, yakety smackety. Oh, that's Mike, man, that's great. Oh, I watch all the badge cams. That's awesome. And then he reaches down here and he goes, look, I've got a VP9 too.
Is there not a magnet holster, please?
I couldn't tell. I never got to see that. And I went, oh, no. Thank God the light had just turned green. And I went, put that down. And we drove off. Okay, let's not do that. Okay? So again, if you go, hey, I need to change over to my other gun. I need to change holsters. I need to do X, Y, and Z. Just ask us. We'll bring you up to the line, let you do it. Question? Matt?
Okay to release the mag as long as the gun stays in the holster?
If the gun can stay completely in the holster without being removed from the holster at all, so you have like a button magazine release that you can actuate without removing the gun at all, that's totally fine. We're going to run a hot range here. And that means you're going to have a loaded gun on your person all the time. And I know that squicks some people out sometimes, but if you carry a concealed firearm on your person, you are walking around with a loaded gun all the time, and you should be walking around with a loaded gun. And so doing that on the range doesn't scare me, especially because we do not take that gun out of the holster other than up on the line. Now, here's what we're going to do. You are all going to remind me through your own mouths what it is that will end your day of firearms training. There are two things. Do you remember them? Okay, so handling a firearm behind the line without permission. And? No, we haven't had that one yet. We'll come back to you.
Pointed at somebody.
Pointing firearm at any other person. And what's the second one?
Gun outside. Out. Back behind the line.
Okay, handling a firearm behind the line. There's another piece to that, though.
A loaded firearm?
No, without permission.
Oh, without permission.
Without permission. You can always get permission and just ask one of us, and we'll do that. So what was the other thing that got you? Pointing a firearm at any other person. Okay.
Pointing a gun at any other person.
Pointing a gun at any other person.
And pulling a gun out behind the line.
Handling a firearm behind the firing line without permission. Good, thank you.
Pointing it at another person and handling a gun behind the firing line without permission.
Yeah, Adam.
Pointing a gun at another person and handling a firearm behind the line without permission.
Excellent, thank you.
Pointing a gun at another person and handling a gun without permission behind the line.
Very good.
Pointing a gun at another person or handling a firearm behind the line without permission?
Yep,
Pointing a gun at another person or handling a firearm behind the line without permission.
excellent.
Pointing a gun at another person or handling a firearm behind the line without permission.
Excellent, Rob.
Handling a firearm behind the line without permission or pointing a gun at another person.
Pointing a gun at another person or handling the gun behind the line without permission.
Yes. Now, guess what? You've all articulated to me that you understand what ends your day of shooting. So we will not have any arguments if that were to happen. We don't do it often. I've had a firearm pointed at me by a student one time. Literally, loaded a magazine. Oh, well, okay.
I did it twice.
Okay, apart from one class where I had 3 different students point a gun at me, if you ever want to see Sailor John come out, have 3 students point a gun at me in one class. I holstered everybody up, and I did get a knife hand out for a minute. I was hot. Before I was Pastor John, I was Sailor John, and before that, I was construction worker John. So I know how to use colorful verbiage. But
And it was a church safety class.
yeah, it was a church safety class to boot.
So which John came out? Sailor John?
Yeah, it was a combination, right? I always say, I don't curse like a sailor. I am a sailor. And y'all use me as an example. I'm a role model. I mean, that's it, right? Had a student. We loaded magazines. I'm downrange helping another student do something. And she literally, 10 yards behind the firing line, just drew her firearm out and loaded it, pointed it right at me doing so. Turned around and there's a student 6, 7 yards behind me, pointing a gun at me.